Today we're going to be looking at a little closely of how the city council's paid in addition to those duties. A part-time position, a full-time job. First slide up here now, we're going to talk about the pay hike. Now, the city council, 40 members voted in favor of giving themselves a pay hike, 7 against it. The mayor convened a commission that said that this should be paid about $138,000 a year would be something fair. Well, now salaries are going to go from $112,000, $500 annually for the base salary, to $148,500. So that means city council members are going to get about a 32% raise, which seems high, but is still far behind the folks in LA making about $180,000 base. Moving on, we're going to look at the trade-off. So for this raise, the council agreed that instead of having a part-time position, they wouldn't accept outside income or extra salary received from chair and committee, what's known generally as a Lulu. Well, the extra salary is an average of about $8,000 per member, but some went as high as getting a $25,000 bump. Going on, we're going to go to the income gap. Down here at the bottom, you'll see that City Council Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, who's running the show, is going to bring in $164,000, which is going to make her raise give her more than 7 times the amount of the income that the average person in her district in East Harlem makes, which is about $22,000 and some change. Going back up top now, City Council members now make 95% more than the average. I'm sorry, not 95% more. Council members now make more than 95% of other New Yorkers. And members in 35 of the city's 51 districts now make more than twice that of their constituents. So to finish it up, city council members, I'll take you back to the first slide. City council members are now full-time. They make more money, about 32% more, and that means that they're likely making more money than you. Melody?
Indeed. But running the city of New York is not an easy job, and many argue that a full-time city council will be beneficial to all New Yorkers. Others disagree. Regardless, it's going to mean a big change in city government, one that raises questions like, why wasn't more time allowed for the council to explain and defend it? And were New Yorkers given enough time to understand the raise, its risks, and its implications? To discuss this move, we want to welcome back Rachael Fauss, Public Policy Director at Citizens Union. Nice to see you again,
Happy to be
Rachael.
here.
And Prudence Katze, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Research and Policy Manager for Common Cause New York. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
Hello. Okay.
So first off, why wasn't there so much discussion? There was like something you heard on NYC maybe one day, and then the next thing, the mayor signing it, but there wasn't a lot of back and forth.
Sure. So the mayor did appoint a salary commission. It's quadrennial. It was supposed to be every 4 years, but it kind of went on hiatus a little bit. You can imagine that mayors don't always want to appoint a commission to raise their own salary. But so it was formed, and last fall in November and December had a couple of hearings. That was just for it to examine the issue. Then they came out with a report in December, which Mayor de Blasio kind of signed off on and then sent it to the council. Then the council introduced legislation a week before a hearing and voted on it 2 days later. That was our problem with the process.
And it wasn't even the recommended amount, right? It was
Correct.
about $10,000 more than the recommended amount by the commission.
Yes, they accepted the salaries for all the other positions for city government except for themselves. They argue for $10,000 more. And they had one public hearing, but it was after the bills were introduced and no changes were made to the bills when they were voted on 2 days later. So that was our major problem with the process at Citizens Union.
Right, that went so quickly.
Correct.
And who were the 7 against? And what were they arguing, really? They wanted to stay part-time?
They wanted to actually not do a full ban on outside income. They wanted to do a cap. That's something Citizens Union supported. That was one of the changes we recommended to the council. I know Common Cause had a different position of a ban on outside income.
I mean, to echo what Rachael pointed out, yes, they introduced the bills, then there was a hearing, and then bam, it's signed into law. But we do want to point out, this is a great package. I mean, we have good government groups members of the city council themselves have been advocating to close down the Lulus for decades. They haven't had a raise since 2006, so it's been
explain a Lulu to give a little background.
please.
So I loved that presentation, by the way. That was
So bad,
awesome.
right? It
That
goes
was great.
on for another minute. So if you want to go to our BRIC channel,
Can
you
you
see
share
it
that
on
with us?
YouTube. Well, the salary info is out of date on that one since this thing Friday. But a Lulu.
So the Lulu, as you said, a Lulu is basically a stipend for being a chair of committee, or the speaker themselves gets a Lulu because their position has a lot more additional duties on top of looking after their own constituents. But the problem with the Lulu is we would just see an explosion of committees themselves. I think it's about 47 out of the council members are chairs of committees, and some committees they just barely even meet. It's a way of favoritism. It's a way for the speaker to say, I choose you, so you're going to be elevated, and you'll be one of maybe the 3 or 4 council members who won't get it. That's a message. So this is a complete equalizing, leveling out.
It's a backdoor way of actually just increasing the salary of the members anyway. Why not make it equal
Why not
across
just
the
make it
board?
equal?
And that's
Right.
exactly why we supported a ban. And actually, 34 of the council members, Citizens Union does a candidate questionnaire when the council members run for office, and 34 of them supported getting rid of the Lulus, but then many of them took them anyway.
So is it better for our city now that we have a full-time council, even though if you looked at the salary before, say, hey, $138 a year for a part-time job, we should all be so lucky to have a part-time job that made that much money. But is this going to just sweep out any thoughts of corruption or favoritism?
I mean, Citizens Union, I mean, sorry.
We agree on almost everything. We agree on almost everything, so.
We are different entities. Common Cause.
Yes.
Thank you. Common Cause definitely thinks that this means there's not going to be even a hint of corruption. There's not going to be a hint of conflict of interest. Who knows, there's someone could be a lawyer, they could be representing someone who has interest before the city. This is a way of just not even having that worry in the back of the constituent's mind.
I think one issue that is interesting about the full-time is that the council members were arguing that they should get an extra $10,000 beyond what the commission, the quadrennial commission recommended, because they were banning outside income. But actually the commission addressed that issue in the report, and only about 3 or 4 members actually even took outside income.
I think Chaim Deutsch, who is a rep here in Brooklyn, was the only one making, and they give a wide range. So between like 90 and 150 or something. But there were not a lot of people like, was it Debbie, someone from Queens, she claimed $1,000 a year that she was making on
real
interest
estate or something.
So there's not like there were so many of them who were actually utilizing the fact that it's a part-time position.
And the changes are going to allow them to teach a course at a college if they want to teach political science. So it's not barring everything. But I think the important thing is that for the constituents to know that their full-time attention is on them. And I think that's why it's very significant. Citizens Union supported a cap. Congress has a cap. It's about 15% of the income. Because we do have term limits. So there's in 8 years that somebody can run, they might want to go back to another job. So in the interest of keeping citizen legislators, we thought there should be a little wiggle room. But certainly, to make a lot of money, that's not a small percentage of what the salary, I think, sort of smacks of, where's their attention? Are they doing something that could be a conflict with their current position?
Right, and even though maybe there's only 4 people right now, we don't know what it would be in the future. So this enshrines, this makes sure that the legislators' attention is going to be on the constituents and on the city as a whole, because they're not just looking after their district, they're also looking at laws that affect all of us.
But we also have a map from the folks at DNA Info. They did this great interactive thing where you could type in your zip code and find out how much more your representative was making. And if you are in a district where the average person is making $22,000 and you're coming in with $160,000, how out of step does that seem to make you with the average person in your district, and you're representing them? How effectively do you think these people can go to bat for their constituents?
Well, Well, and I think that's a large reason why we think they didn't need the extra $10,000
Right.
beyond what the commission gave them. We thought it was already sufficient, around the $140,000.
Right.
But, you're absolutely right. And I think because there is that perception that what they were doing in increasing the salary is it's promoting themselves. It's right. The decision they made to do that affected them. And we thought that the process should have been more inclusive and deliberative. They should have taken a lot more time to do it. And I think for the exact reason that you mentioned, that this is an issue that is sensitive to New Yorkers, because you're exactly right. The vast majority of New Yorkers do not make anywhere near that much money.
Right, but we want to be able to attract talent. We want to be able to attract people who, so they're making they will be making $148,000.
Right.
A lot of these folks who, they've had multiple degrees or they've had a lot of training, they could be making $160,000, $200,000 as a lawyer, as an executive in some kind of corporation. So, but for them to choose, I am going to focus myself to public service.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think we're going to be attracting even more and better talent as the years go on.
That's
And
kind
that's
of
the
a hollow
balance.
argument,
It's the
though.
balance.
Wouldn't we want to attract better teachers and people into those professions? Doesn't that seem like that would be a better way to channel that money instead of someone having the prestige of being a city council member? It's not exactly like a hard bargain. Like, well, I can make $200K in the private sector.
that's a
but
good point,
I'm
but-
humbling myself. If the city council is supposed to be your legislator next door,
But
it's not like the president.
This quadrennial that was appointed was for legislator pay raises and for mayor, public advocate, comptroller. That doesn't preclude teachers or anyone else. Just because one sector gets a pay
but I'm
raise.
saying if teachers and other public servants who are out there doing the work every day and don't have cars waiting for them or the shine that comes from being a city council member, it's a tough job, but there are other difficult jobs that should be compensated better than they are now. That would, like a 32% raise, you wake up in the morning, you're making 32% more. That's significant.
That is significant, I agree. But I do want to say, and believe me, I'm not trying to go to bat and defend the city council members,
Yeah.
but I've never actually seen a city council member take a car. I often see them on the subway. A lot of them have small staff. They're doing the best that they can. And they're taking on extra work for, not all of them, but a lot of them, for example, participatory budgeting,
Right.
which is this amazing process where they give up $1 million that they usually get to do whatever they
help
wish.
to allocate it,
Yeah, and
based
then
on-
folks in their district get to vote on that. And there's a lot of staff time that gets allocated to that. It's not paid extra. So that's just one example of more work that they're taking on that benefits everybody.
Right. Well, Prudence, you mentioned their staffers, and something that was interesting to me about this was that the staff isn't getting any sort of an increase.
Yeah, that rising tide isn't lifting all the boats.
Right.
And there are a few members in the back of the council chambers when they were voting on it, members of the staff that were standing up in protest, actually.
Good for them.
And that is
no.
a significant issue, and I think this speaks to a larger issue of how well do we want to compensate those in public service, right? Whether they're teachers, they're firefighters, they're staff of city council members, they're council members themselves, and I think it's a great larger discussion that we need to have as a city, and maybe the council members will be a little more inclined to think about the salaries of those other staffers when they're debating the budget coming up.
Absolutely.
For the other
yeah.
other agencies.
Yes, so we'll keep the discussion going. Great way to wrap it up. We're unfortunately out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's great.